has lied, which means the man who sold this to me has lied to me, and I am not even getting a good canoe from my money that I paid. He had paid 76 cents for a genuine Indian birch bark canoe, only to find that it leaked. Darn, 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 he muttered. Then he bailed out his canoe and hauled it up on the beach for repairs. He knew he couldn't take Harriet out in the leaky boat. She wouldn't like it. Tired though he was, he climbed a spruce tree and found some spruce gum. With this, he plugged the seam and stopped the leak. Even so, the canoe turned out to be a cranky little craft. If Stuart had not plenty of experience on the water, he would have gotten into serious trouble with it. It was a tippy boat for a souvenir. Stuart carried stones from the beach down to the water's edge and ballasted the canoe with the stones until it floated evenly and steadily. So you see, he put some stones inside the canoe, which is a smart thing to do, because if you don't do that, the canoe might tip over if it's too lightweight. You see these rocks that he put inside? That was rather smart, and it does prove that Stuart knows what he's doing. I don't know where he learned all of this, but remember, he also knew how to drive the Wasp, that schooner that he won the race in, so he seems to just like boating a lot. Stuart carried, stones from the canoe, from the beach down to the water's edge, and ballasted the canoe with the stones until it floated evenly and steadily. He made a backrest so that Harriet would be able to lean back and trail her fingers in the water as she wished. He also made a pillow by tying one of his clean handkerchiefs around some moss. Then he went for a paddle to practice his stroke. Stroke means like when you do this. That's a stroke. It means when the way that you move it to make the paddle go down into the water and make it move forward. Make the boat move forward because it's pushing the water. He was angry that he didn't have anything better than a paper spoon for a paddle, but he decided there was nothing he could do about it. He wondered whether Harriet would notice that his paddle was really just an ice cream spoon. All that afternoon, Stuart worked on the canoe, adjusting the ballast, filling seams, and getting everything ship-shape for the morrow. He could think of nothing else but his date with Harriet. At supper time, he took his axe, felled a dandelion. You see that little yellow flower? That's a dandelion. We have lots of them grow in the summertime. And he cut one down with his axe. Opened a can of deviled ham and had a light supper of ham and dandelion milk. After supper, he propped himself up against a fern, bit off some spruce gum for a chew, and lay there on the bank dreaming and chewing gum. In his imagination, he went over every detail of tomorrow's trip with Harriet. With his eyes shut, he seemed to see the whole occasion plainly. How she would look when she came down the path to the water. How calm and peaceful the river was going to be in the twilight. How graceful the canoe would seem, drawn up on the shore. In imagination, he lived every minute of their evening together. So Stuart's getting a little bit dreamy about this because he's really excited about, making friends with a girl who's also tiny like him. And I guess he's thinking, maybe they're going to get married or something. I don't know. But it sounds like he's really excited about this date. He thinks it's a date. But remember, we're not even sure that Harriet's going to come because Harriet hasn't given him a call or sent him a letter back. He's just hoping she's going to come. They would paddle out to a large water lily pad upstream, and he would invite Harriet to step out onto the pad and sit a while. Stuart planned to wear his swimming trunks under his clothes so that he could dive off the lily pad into the cool stream. He would swim the crawl stroke up and down and all around the lily pad while Harriet watched, admiring his ability as a swimmer. Stuart chewed the spruce gum very rapidly as he thought about this part of the episode. Suddenly, Stuart opened his eyes and sat up. He thought about the letter he had sent and wondered whether it would have been delivered. It was an unusually small letter, of course, which might have gone unnoticed in the letterbox. This idea filled him with fears and worries, but soon he let his thoughts return to the river. And as he lay there, a whippoorwill began to sing on the opposite shore. Darkness spread over the land, and Stuart dropped off to sleep. The next day dawned cloudy. Stuart had gone up to the village to have an oil changed in his car. So he hid the canoe under some leaves, tied it firmly to a stone, and went off on his errand, still thinking about Harriet and wishing it were a nicer day. The sky looked rainy. Stuart returned from the village with a headache, but he hoped that it would be better before 5 o'clock. He felt rather nervous, as he had never taken a girl canoeing before. He spent the afternoon lying around the camp, trying on different shirts to see which one looked best on him and combing his whiskers. He would no sooner get a clean shirt on than he would discover that it was wet under the arms from nervous perspiration, and he would have to change it for a dry one. He put on a clean shirt at 2 o'clock, another one at 3, and another one at 4:15. This took up most of the afternoon, and as 5 o'clock drew near, Stuart grew more and more nervous. He kept looking at his watch, glancing up at the path, combing his hair, talking to himself, and fidgeting. The day had turned chilly, and Stuart was almost sure there was going to be rain. He couldn't imagine what he would do if it should rain just as Harriet Ames showed up to go canoeing. You can't canoe in the rain. It wouldn't be fun. The boat would fill with water. At last, 5 o'clock arrived. Stuart heard someone coming down the path. It was Harriet. She had accepted his invitation. Stuart threw himself down against the stump and tried to strike an easy attitude, as though he were accustomed to taking girls out. He waited until Harriet was within a few feet of him, then got up. "Hello there," he said, trying to keep his voice from trembling. "Are you Mr. Little?" asked Harriet. "Yes," said Stuart. "It's nice of you to come." "Well, it was very good of you to ask me," replied Harriet. She was wearing a white sweater, a tweed skirt, short white wool socks, and sneakers. Her hair was tied back with a brightly colored handkerchief, and Stuart noticed that she carried a box of peppermints in her hand. You guys see that red and white candy? That's called a peppermint. It tastes very yummy. "Not at all. Glad to do it," said Stuart. "I only wish we had better weather." "Oh, sorry. This is Stuart's voice. I only wish we had better weather. Looks rather sticky, don't you think?" Stuart was trying to make his voice sound as though he had an English accent. Harriet looked at the sky and nodded. "Oh, well," she said, "if it rains, it rains." "Sure," repeated Stuart. "If it rains, it rains. My canoe is a short distance up the shore. May I help you over the rough places in the path?" Stuart was courteous by nature, but Harriet said she didn't need any help. She was an active girl and not at all inclined to stumble or fall. Stuart led the way to where he had hidden the canoe, and Harriet followed. But then, when they reached the spot, Stuart was horrified to discover that the canoe was not there. It had disappeared. Stuart's heart sank. He felt like crying. "The canoe is gone," he groaned. Then he began racing wildly down the bank, looking everywhere. Harriet joined the search, and after a while they found the canoe, but it was a mess. Someone had been playing with it. A long piece of heavy string was tied to one end. The ballast rocks were gone. The pillow was gone. The backrest was gone. The spruce gum had come out of the seam. Mud was all over everything, and one of the paddles was all bent and twisted. It was just a mess. It looked just the way a birch bark canoe looks after some big boys are finished playing with it. Stuart was heartbroken. He did not know what to do. He sat down on a twig and buried his head in his hands. Oh, gee, he kept saying. Oh, gee whiz. What's the trouble? Asked Harriet. Miss Ames, said Stuart in a trembling voice, I assure you I had everything beautifully arranged, everything, and now look. Harriet was for fixing the canoe up and going out on the river anyway, but Stuart couldn't stand the idea. It's no use, he said bitterly. It wouldn't be the same. The same as what? Said Harriet. The same as the way it was going to be when I was thinking about it yesterday. I'm afraid a woman can't understand these things. Look at that string. It's tied on so tight I could never get it off. Well, said Harriet, can't we just let it hang over in the water and trail along after us? Stuart looked at her in despair. Did you ever see an Indian paddling along with some quite unspoiled river with such a great big piece of rope dragging astern? He asked. We could pretend we were fishing, said Harriet, who didn't realize that some people are fussy about boats. I don't want to pretend I'm fishing, cried Stuart desperately. Besides, look at that mud. Look at it. He was screaming now. Harriet sat down on the twig beside Stuart. She offered him a peppermint, but he shook his head. Well, she said, it's starting to rain. I guess I better be running along if you're not going to take me paddling in your canoe. I don't see why you have to sit here and sulk. Would you like to come up to my house? After dinner, you can take me to the dance at the country club. It might cheer you up. No, thank you, replied Stuart. I don't know how to dance. Besides, I plan to make an early start in the morning. I'll probably be on the road at daybreak. Are you going to sleep out in all this rain? Asked Harriet. Certainly, said Stuart. I'll crawl in under the canoe. Harriet shrugged her shoulders. Well, she said, goodbye, Mr. Little. Goodbye, Miss Ames, said Stuart. I'm sorry our evening on the river had to end like this. So am I, said Harriet, and she walked away along the wet path toward Tracy's Lane, leaving Stuart alone with his broken dreams and his damaged canoe. Well, Stuart had a pretty bad attitude about that. So, of course, it would be very upsetting if you found your canoe all messed up because somebody was playing with it and ripped it up. But Harriet was saying, hey, we can just fix the canoe and we can still go canoeing together on the water. But Stuart said, no, no, no. Everything's ruined. We can't do it now. And she just went back home. So they didn't have a very good time together. That's Stuart's fault, sort of. I like Harriet's attitude better. The last chapter, chapter 15. Stuart slept under the canoe that night. He awakened at 4 to find that the rain had stopped. The daybreak would clear. Already the birds were beginning to stir, and make bright sounds in the branches overhead. Stuart never let a bird pass without looking to see if it was Margalo. At the edge of the town, he found a filling station and stopped to get some gas. Okay, now, this is the video we're watching tonight. In the old times when the truth is people still use filling stations now. It's just different. So if you drive a car, you need to sometimes take it to a gas station to get more gas put inside it so you can keep driving it, right? Well, in the old times, there would be a person there waiting to do it for you. Actually, in China, in Shanghai, we do it that way. You have somebody there and you can say, I want to get this much gas, and they will put that much gas in your car, fuel for you to drive. But sometimes people just get it themselves, especially where I'm from. But I'm going to show you a video of what it was like to get gasoline at a filling station around the time that this book was written. So this is the kind of picture we can have in our minds of what E.B. White was imagining when he put this part in the book. So this is an old-fashioned filling station. The scene starts off with a family at the breakfast table, and their dad is going to go take their car out to go get gas. Looks like another silent video because it's from the old times. There's the filling station, the man with that hat. So you pull in, you back up to the pump, and then the man that's standing there, you see him. He is the guy that works at the filling station, and he's going to go in, talk to the driver, say, "Hey, sir, how much do you need?" Say, "Okay, I'm going to fill my whole tank today." Say, "Okay, I can help you with that." Sometimes they would even wash your window for you, or something like that if you needed to get your window washed. He's letting him check, see what kind of gas he's getting, and the man's just going to fill him up. So usually when you get gas, you need to get like gallons. Gallons is a lot. But think about the size of Stuart's car. Stuart's car is a little tiny car. So he's going to the filling station to get some gasoline, but it's going to be strange, I'm sure, because he can't get a lot of gasoline. He's going to ask for something else. He's going to ask for just a very little bit. "5, please," said Stuart to the attendant. "5 what?" he asked. "5 drops," said Stuart. But the man shook his head and said that he couldn't sell such a small amount of gas. "Why can't you?" demanded Stuart. "You need the money and I need gas. Why can't we work something out between us?" The filling station man went inside and came back with a medicine dropper. Stuart unscrewed the cap of the tank, and the man put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops of gasoline. "I've never done anything like this before," he said. "Better look at the oil too," said Stuart. After everything had been checked and the money had been paid, Stuart climbed in, started the engine, and drove out onto the highway. The sky was growing brighter, and along the river the mists of morning hung in the early light. The village was still asleep. Stuart's car purred along smoothly. Stuart felt refreshed and glad to be on the move again. Half a mile out of town, the road forked. One road seemed to go off toward the west, and the other road continued north. Stuart drew up to on the side of the northbound road and got out to look at the situation over. To his surprise, he discovered there was a man sitting in the ditch, leaning against a signpost. The man wore spurs on his legs. He also wore a heavy leather belt, and Stuart realized that he must be a repairman for the telephone company. "Good morning," said Stuart in a friendly voice. The repairman raised one hand to his head in a salute. Stuart sat down in the ditch beside him and breathed deeply of the fresh, sweet air. "It's going to be a fine day," he observed. "Yes," agreed the repairman. "Fine day. And I'm looking forward to climbing my poles. You see those telephone poles? We have them here too. Those are telephone wires, and there's a man who's his job is to repair them, so he needs to climb up and fix the wires." "I wish you fair skies and a tight grip," said Stuart. "By the way, do you ever see any birds on the tops of your poles?" "Yes, I see birds in great numbers," replied the repairman. "Well, if you ever run across a bird named Margalo," said Stuart, "I'd appreciate it if you would drop me a line. Here's my card." "Describe the bird," said the repairman, taking out a pad and pencil. "Brown," said Stuart, "with a streak of yellow on her bosom." "Know where she comes from?" asked the man. "She comes from fields once tall with wheat, from pastures in fern and thistle. She comes from the vales of meadows sweet, and she loves to whistle." The repairman wrote it all down briefly. Fields, wheat, pastures, fern and thistle, vales, meadow sweet, enjoys whistling. Then he put his pad back in his pocket and tucked Stuart's card away in his wallet. I'll keep my eyes open, he promised. Stuart thanked him. They sat for a while in silence. Then the man spoke. Which direction are you headed? He asked. North, said Stuart. Now, do you see I have sort of a compass here? This is when we say north, we mean this way. So Stuart's saying he's going north. North is nice, said the repairman. I have always enjoyed going north. Of course, southwest is a fine direction too. Okay, here's southwest. He's saying you could also go this way to look for Margalo. Yes, I suppose it is, said Stuart thoughtfully. And there's east, continued the repairman. Look, here's east, this way. I once had an interesting experience on an easterly course. Do you want me to tell you about it? No, thanks, said Stuart. The repairman seemed disappointed, but he kept right on talking. There's something about north, he said, something that sets it apart from all other directions. A person who is heading north is not making any mistake, in my opinion. That's the way I feel it. I look at it, said Stuart. So Stuart's headed north. I rather expect that from now on I should be traveling north until the end of my days. Worse things than that could happen to a person, said the repairman. Yes, I know, said Stuart. Following a broken telephone line north, I have come upon some wonderful places, continued the repairman. Swamps where cedars grow and turtles wait on logs, but not for anything in particular. By crooked fences broken by years of standing still.
Sue, we can hardly hear you.
Better?
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. Should I go back?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay. Right on.
We can't hear you again.
Still no? Weird.
Oh, now it's better. I think like every time you move, there
Is
sort
it
of
okay?
like,
Is
yeah,
this
it's
okay?
not, yes.
All right, I'll freeze. There's something about north, something that sets it apart from every other direction. A person who is heading north is not making any mistake, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it, said Stuart. I rather expect that from now on I shall be traveling north until the end of my days. Worse things than that can happen to a person, said the repairman. Yes, I know, answered Stuart. Following a broken telephone line north, I have come upon some wonderful places, continued the repairman. Swamps where cedars grow and turtles wait on logs, but not for anything in particular. Fields bordered by crooked fences, broken by years of standing still. Orchards so old they have forgotten where the farmhouse is. Where the farmhouse is. In the north, I have eaten my lunch in pastures rank with ferns and junipers, all under fair skies with the wind blowing. My business has taken me into a spruce woods on winter nights where the snow lay deep and soft, a perfect place for a carnival of rabbits. I sat at peace on the freight platforms of railroad junctions in the north in the warm hours with the warm smells. I know fresh lakes in the north, undisturbed except by fish and hawk, and of course, by the telephone company, which has to follow its nose. I know all of these places well. They are a long way from here, don't forget that. And a person who is looking for something that doesn't travel very fast. That's perfectly true, said Stuart. Well, I guess I'd better be going. Thank you for your friendly remarks. Not at all, said the repairman. I hope you can find that bird. Stuart rose from the ditch, climbed into his car, and started up the road that led toward the north. The sun was just coming over the hills on his right. As he peered ahead into the great land that stretched before him, the way seemed long, but the sky was bright, and somehow he felt he was headed in the right direction. Do you see him here on the road? This tiny little yellow car? There's Stuart. And he's going to be traveling north looking for Margalo. And friends, that is where the story ends. That's the end. Can you believe it? That's the end of the story. We made it to the end. I don't know if you're surprised by the ending. I think the story could keep going. I'd like for it to keep going, but it doesn't. That's the whole story. So I guess we just have to take a guess what we think. Stuart must find Margalo. I think he must. And of course, it would be a very good thing if he would, because he really loved her, right? Well, thank you so much for joining me for Stuart Little, friends. And after a little while, I hope we can read another story together. Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay, great. Good, everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.